New research suggests that countries which reopened schools after the summer break did not cause a spike in cases of COVID. The Insights for Education Foundation tracked the experiences of 191 countries. Its data also suggests there are more than 700 million children still out of school globally because of the pandemic. Let's talk now to Dr. Randa, Grob-Zakhary, the CEO of the organisation that carried out that global study. Thank you for being with us. Tell us a bit more about your findings, and also I'm interested as to whether you could accurately compare all these countries when the approach to the pandemic and kids going back to school is so different.
Thank you so much, Lucy. It's a pleasure to be here. There are really three key findings that came out of this work, very simply. The first is that, as you said, we're not saying school has no place in the contribution towards cases. What we're saying is, as of today, as of the end of September, there is no direct, consistent pattern of the status of schools and COVID cases. At this point, that pattern simply cannot be seen, and we looked at schools both as they closed earlier in the year, as they opened, as they went on break, and as they returned. But there was also a second very interesting finding that has relevance for countries around the world, and that is that countries are behaving differently depending on whether they're in the second wave or still in the first, at least when it comes to how they're opening schools and how schools are staying open. And finally, another key finding was that, again, contrary to what many would assume, there are still many countries in the world, over 50, that have still kept schools closed and haven't reopened yet. So altogether, what this tells us is that there are some common assumptions floating around, and simply observing what's happened over the last 6 months significantly challenges these assumptions and asks us to be much more evidence-informed and aware as we make these choices.
So what are the key factors that countries and schools should be considering if they're to stay open? What works?
So I think that it is too soon to give an absolute black and white of what is good and what is not good, and we may never be able to answer that. Partly to your last question, how can we compare when things are so different? And this will help me answer what you have just asked. Things are very different, and data is also highly variable in its quality from where it comes from. However, after looking over 7 months at 190 countries, we see patterns. We cannot make hard and fast conclusions, but we can see trends and we can see patterns. And so we can answer the question you just posed, Lucy. What are the types of things that lead to effective reopening and successfully staying open? And we do see patterns. We see that generally the first reopening of a country, of its schools, is generally associated with these things: a staged, gradual opening rather than all at once, sufficient time between the government's announcement of the plan and the actual reopening so that there is sufficient preparation, there is sufficient meaningful engagement of the community, and also preparation of both students and teachers and so forth. And there's also another very critical one, that is around transparency with the community, with teachers, with students. And we find those things when they are conducted all together, they are the most common patterns that come out of those who have opened successfully. There are examples that have been shared where those things have not been done, and schools have had to either, as a nation, close down again, or partially with restricted closures, close down, regroup, and start again.
Randa, fascinating research and will be good news for so many. Thank you very much.